Hey, Fanboy Nation.
This is your pal Daffy Duck, and you're watching.
We're watching
You're watching Fanboy.
Fanboy.
A fanboy, etc.
Fanboy Nation.
Dot, I assume Tom.
This morning, I have the pleasure of speaking with Robert Cuffley and Colin Sheldon about their new movie, Bright Hill Road. Gentlemen, how are you today?
Excellent. Thank you.
Doing well.
Yeah, it's very interesting, thanks to Zoom and Skype and all these other formats, that we're allowed to meet together simply because we could be in different parts of the country. I don't know where everybody is, but I know the movie takes place in California, so I know I'm at home.
Yeah, we're in Calgary, and yes, it is weird, this whole pandemic. It's going to alert people to how little they have to leave their home, even when it's said and done over, right?
Right. I think now's the time to watch the Bruce Willis movie Surrogate.
Okay.
After, of course, we watch Bright Hill Road.
Right.
Yeah. Gentlemen, please take me through the movie. I mean, this is a strange, dark and twisted, road, for a lack of better terms, that we go on, and dealing with a smaller budget but more psychological horror than sitting there and just what was the term that they used to use about 5 years ago? Torture porn.
Right. I'll go on record. I don't like torture porn. I think it's kind of junk food. But yeah, this is psychological, as you said, which Colin and I really dug that about Susie's script, and it is conducive to small budgets. But yeah, it's about a woman who literally bottoms out, and she's an alcoholic, and that attracted me to the script. I had never seen a female alcoholic in a horror movie. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think I've seen a single one. And she hits rock bottom and has to leave, going to her sister's in California, and stops at this boarding house. And these strange things start to happen. And what I really liked about the script is the whole time, because she's an alcoholic, people are saying, no, you didn't see anything. You didn't hear anything. You're just, sweetie, you're just drunk. You're just drunk. Like everything's blamed on the alcohol. Whereas the viewer is also confused, but it begins to solidify that this is not just a alcohol-induced hallucination. This is actually happening. But I've always liked people unraveling on camera. Not the crew so much as the cast. But yeah, like the cabin fever thing, which all of us can speak to, The Shining as well, with the snow. It has elements of that, and it has elements of Session 9, which I absolutely adore that film. It's not very well known, from Brad Anderson in 2002, I think. And also Roman Polanski's Repulsion, which is about a woman slowly disintegrating in her own apartment.
Susie's not here. Susie Moloney is not here to defend herself, but I am going to ask the producer and the director of this. When a writer presents a horror movie, whether it's a psychological thriller or even torture porn or a slasher flick, what goes through your guys' head with, besides that it's being a great story or something that you want to see on camera, what's really wrong with this person inside their head that they had to write a story like this?
It's a great question. And I've had that too on stuff that I've written, because I come across as a nice guy, and anyone that knows me knows that's not true. But with Susie, it's, and Colin, please jump in. Susie's a very gifted, genuine horror novelist who is best-selling. And I think she just instantly gets it. And she writes, she's the type, here, give me that cocktail napkin. I just got a story idea. She's one of those types. And Colin came to me and said, do you want to make a horror movie? Do you have any ideas? And I went to Susie, and she literally said, let me pull out my cocktail napkins, or what have you. And she just had like a one-liner of this, and which I can't say because it's a spoiler, but I gravitated towards it, and as did Colin. And I like the Twilight Zone aspect of it and the Black Mirror aspect of it. Colin, am I forgetting anything?
No, I think that covers it. I mean,
I think we were looking. Both of us have been through the trying to find funding sort of scenarios, and so we were both looking for something that could be done on a smaller budget that wouldn't take a lot of work to pull the financing in and to be able to go ahead and shoot it. And it was the right idea that we knew we could do well on the sort of a budget that we had.
Yeah, and Susie, if you ever do meet her, she's like 4'9". She's like the sweetest thing in the world. But yeah, her mind goes to dark places for sure.
It's always the people under 5'2" that come up with some of the scariest stuff.
I know, it's ridiculous.
We've gone through this whole ebb and flow of the pandemic. We'll lock you down till a holiday, at least in California. Then we'll let you out, spread all your germs, come back home, lock you down. Next holiday comes in, we'll let you out, lock you back down. How difficult is it to try to find funding to make movies during this era of, primarily lockdowns, but, we still need some sort of escape, whether it's Susie's novels or your guys' movie or a movie based on one of her novels coming together and getting it done?
Mm-hmm. Colin, do you want to address that?
It is challenging, particularly because there were so many productions that paused. And so, the distributor slates all got bumped later because they didn't want to start new projects until they finished the projects that were already, in the midst of being made. So, yeah, I mean, for this one, we were kind of fortunate in that we were just in post-production when the pandemic hit. So, I mean, that isn't really affected by lockdowns. Our post-production team was small, as our crew was small, so everyone was basically able to continue on. But it has been challenging as we look forward to the next projects in pulling in the financing to get them made.
Mm-hmm. I've been making horror movies with my daughters during quarantine and sending them out to festivals with some success, which has been nice. So I think a lot of filmmakers haven't been able to get outside. They're just doing their own thing in their house, which I applaud. It's pretty awesome.
Do you think because of all this, we're going to see a rise in horror movies, 70s style, taking place in the forest type deal because of the fresh air and the openness out there, and you can take a skeleton crew to make stories like that?
That's a great question, and yes, 100%. So we had a monster movie queued up, and we put it aside because there's fighting. It's teens. There was kissing, and just too much stuff to negotiate on something where the budget's already small and you've got the pandemic weighing on your shoulders as well. So we went to something smaller that's a woman trapped in her house. Not Bright Hill Road. It's different. It's about AI. But yeah, that was on our mind for sure. And I can only assume lots of other people, hey, there's a place where we don't have to worry about contact. Let's go shoot there. Like it's a no-brainer. It makes sense to do that.
The title, Bright Hill Road, did you guys actually find a street and go, wow, that'd be the perfect name for this? Was there a negotiation with Susie about what to name the movie or rename the movie? Did she already come with it? Because it's a very specific name that I assume that you saw somewhere or, just dreamed up. And I would have thought it would have been somewhere in, a remote part of California.
No, I think it's fictitious. It has something to do with the ending in a metaphorical sense, which I can't say. But so when you see signs of it, that's just digital wizardry. But yeah, all fictitious, came from Susie.
With something like Bright Hill Road, I don't want to give away too many spoilers because I don't mind spoilers, but I know there's an audience that hates them. There are certain movies that everyone deems are the greatest movies ever made, or some of the greatest movies ever made. But in some of those instances, you can only watch them once. Like Citizen Kane, once you know the ending, you can only watch it once. Unless you're showing it to somebody that's never seen it before. And that's the exciting part. And maybe you watch it a second time to see how it unravels to get to that end. Same with Rosemary's Baby and certain movies like that. What's going to keep the audience coming back to to this film, because you know there is that ending that you could either only watch it once and go, wow, that's it, you know, everything's been revealed, or now I have to go back and re-examine how everything unfolded.
Right. Well, I would gently push back on the Citizen Kane, because I watch that frequently. And as a, what was the other one you mentioned? Rosemary's Baby, even more so. And I find as I get older, I discover new things that are embedded in there, and I study the craft. Like Rosemary's Baby is such a perfect film. I could say Citizen Kane, but everyone talks about Citizen Kane. But Rosemary's Baby is just everyone at the height of their powers. You know, the cast, and if you know about that behind the scenes stuff, Mia Farrow was served with divorce papers from Frank Sinatra while they were shooting. Like, it's just such a fascinating story. So to answer your question, much like The Shining, I go back and I look at breadcrumbs, but I also like to study how they created suspense and apprehension and dread through camera movement, lighting, and most importantly, score. So I, you know, not to put myself in that caliber at all, but just, you know, that would be my hope is, yeah, I know the ending, but I had a fun time on the journey. So let's go on the journey, even though I know the destination, if that makes any sense.
No, it makes total sense. It's just that, you know, there are some people that, you know, once they've watched it and the big reveal happens, there's no surprise in going back and watching it beyond a second time, and sometimes only just the first time. So that's why, you know, I want to go into that angle of seeing how that unfolds for you guys. Colin, you're the producer of this film. When you were presented with the story in itself and you got the funding for it, was it something that you're like, this is something that is going to really resonate with audiences, and especially as the pandemic hit, because you guys were in post-production at that time?
Yeah, I mean, I think with Robert and I, like, and Susie, we're not just looking at making one film. We're looking at, you know, doing as many films as possible. And so, you know, when I looked at the script, it was like, well, here's something that, you know, we can do well on the budget that we have. And yeah, I think it's something that is going to relate to the horror audiences. And it is something that is different, that brings, I think, something new. I mean, not entirely new, but I think there's elements there that that audiences are going to enjoy. And I think for us, it's about creating a roadmap to doing future films together.
Mm-hmm.
Would you guys like to turn this into a franchise at some point, or just work together on multiple projects as a collaboration? You know, or even create a universe within, you know, the Bright Hill Road and tie everything together at some point?
Oh boy, that would be super cool. Susie's talk, because as you know, if you've seen it, the door is open for, okay, so what happens now? Personally, haven't thought of that. I would be open to returning to it, but not before I tried some other things. Yeah, I can't speak for Susie. But Colin, what about you? You don't want to do the same thing again, do you?
I mean, I think it had to be something that, you know, takes a new direction in things, that, you know, brings something new to the table. I don't think, you know, having, you know, another character go through the same path would be of interest. But
what about within space?
But within the space, I mean, I'd definitely be open to it.
No, I'm in space. Bright Hill Road in space.
Oh,
a la Jason X.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh, don't remind me of that film.
We got to have a little bit of fun with that, you know. One of the greatest horror franchises goes to space and just, you know, jumps the shark.
That's the biggest shark jump I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Intergalactic shark jump.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
You know, we've seen throughout the history of cinema that there's been the big blockbuster studio films and then the dip into indie films, you know, silent era going into talkies and musicals, big jump, pre-code, into the code, and so on and so forth, until the college kids came in the 70s and people went to film school and those sort of creative films, and then back to the blockbuster, and then again in the 90s where it was again indie films. And it seems we've had that indies resurgence in the last 5 years, but now it's going to outlast everything because of what's happened to this world and how we've fallen apart. what's your take on the resurgence of indie films, and how much longer is it going to last instead of like the 3 to 5 years, like where we got a Miramax and a Buena Vista, and then everybody had to have their own thing, like Fox Searchlight and so on, and Sony Picture Classics, in order to have like their indie side thing?
Well, optimistically, I'm hoping it's permanent. And I can tell you as a director that actors, sometimes surprisingly big actors, are willing to do things with, you know, nickels and dimes budgets because of what you mentioned, because they want to do something interesting. And we're in an industry where studio execs are combing through YouTube links to find the next voice, be it man or woman, regardless of color. They just want a fresh voice. You know, oh, that's that guy that did that thing, and oh, it exploded, it's 30 million. So I think that's an advantage that won't necessarily go away. And I think there might be a bit of fatigue with huge movies. It's hard to say because James Bond has been pushed and Wonder Woman just came out, but I don't know. I don't think that's gonna necessarily decrease, but I do think indies are going to hold steadfast.
Yeah.
And also, I should also say these, like, cell phones are making the filmmaking process more democratic. And you can quite literally shoot a movie on an iPhone now. And if the story is good, I don't think people care. Like, I remember seeing 28 Days Later in the theater. And the first 3 minutes, I was like, what the hell is this? It looks like it was shot on, you know, something bought in the Soviet Union from the 60s, or, you know, but within 4 minutes, I was pulled in. I couldn't give a crap, about the format or the digital grain. It didn't matter. So the medium wasn't the message. It was just a film like any other film. So I think that's going to empower a lot of younger men and women to go out and make movies and hopefully get noticed.
And Colin, what's your take on all this?
And my hope is as well that, you know, it will be a resurgence. And I think there's a good chance of that with, you know, the streaming services that are available, like Shudder. You know, like, here's a place that, you know, people can go to find horror. And I think, you know, the audience of Shudder is different than Netflix. They want something a little bit more indie. They want something that, you know, isn't, you know, big budget Hollywood sort of movie. And so I think, you know, with I mean, the hardest part about selling a movie is finding your audience. And I think, you know, services like Shudder are showing that they can bring an audience together to actually support this sort of film.
Mm-hmm. With horror having always been a staple, whether it's been in novelization or from even going back as early as, you know, excuse me, as early as the silent era, what is it about the audience that's drawn to horror pictures, whether it's the psychological or the slasher or the torture porn or, you know, just straight up terrifying themselves? Like, what is the attraction to being terrified?
Well, Stephen King says that it's better to experience on the screen than in real life. And I've also read that some people think there's some therapeutic aspects to experiencing it from a distance. And I read yesterday, I can't remember the link, I'm sorry, but it was better endurance, or what's the word? Horror movie viewers are less susceptible to freaking out in certain situations, which I thought was funny because maybe they've had 20 years of practice watching Halloween and Friday the 13th franchises. I don't know. But I do say, like, because I'm getting my oldest daughter into horror, it's like, here you can look at it from a distance. And you get the adrenaline rush without actually having your life in danger, which is always preferable. So I think that's a big part of it.
Yeah, because it's always fun sometimes to be scared, but there's been talks that we're going to get a lot more pandemic movies out of this. And then I've heard people discuss that, you know, with the Spanish flu 100 years ago, that we don't have any movies, or really, you know, more than one or two based on that, because no one wanted to remember it because they lived through it. Right. Why do you think so many people would want to relive our current pandemic in film?
I'll be curious to see where that goes. So the one we're going to be shooting this spring/summer we had originally thought to set it during COVID, so the lead character is isolated, and I thought another layer of isolation is the mask preventing her from leaving the house. And my agent said, quite wisely, people are so tired of that right now. They want an escape, and the best escape is just to pretend it's not happening. But as to your point, I do think there'll be a surgence of these, but it won't be for a while. Much like, there's going to be stories on Donald Trump, but they're not going to be for a while. It's got to gestate. It's got to digest for a while. And I think the COVID thing might be too close to home for a lot of people because it's everywhere right now.
Colin, with that and you being a producer on this film and others, would you like to see a more rise in horror comedies, kind of a la Freaky that just came out a few months ago?
I'm a fan of comedy horror. Tucker and Dale versus Evil is one of my favorites. But I mean, they're an interesting, film to try and sell. I know Tucker and Dale had a lot of problems selling, and I mean, eventually it did, and I think it has kind of paved the way for those that follow. Robert isn't as big of a fan there, so I'm not sure if any of those are going to be on the docket. But it is an interesting way to mix two genres that one wouldn't typically put together.
Yeah, Shaun of the Dead. Come on, you can't not like that.
Yes, Shaun of the Dead as well.
Brilliant.
Yeah,
It's just somewhere.
that one is probably the most perfect comedy horror film made.
100%. I was with a couple who were just newly dating, and we came out of that film, and he said, I didn't think it was funny at all. And I whispered to her, get away from this guy fast. Because that's like a litmus test, right? Like, you can't be with someone that doesn't find that movie funny. You just can't.
Yeah. And what happens if one of your daughters doesn't find it funny then?
Well, she can get her own apartment.
Well, let's jump to the cast for a minute. So I can never pronounce her first name. Miss Williams. Siobhan.
Siobhan.
Yeah. And then Agam Darshi. So I can pronounce that one, but the Irish name I'm at a loss for. Take us through the casting process and what it was like to find your lead characters for Bright Hill Road, and how Michael Eklund came into the picture and everything else, and then location itself.
So Agam and Michael I've worked with before. I think it's my 4th or 5th movie with Michael. So we're close friends. So that's just a no-brainer. But actually Colin suggested Siobhan. Colin, where did you first see her?
Well, she's originally from our same city, Calgary. And she was, I got her started on some of the local TV stuff that shoots here. And then she moved out to Vancouver. But we've been looking and talking to her about some other projects, and then the funding for those projects fell through. So when this film came along, we reached out to her to see if she'd be interested. It was, the film was done quite last minute. I think from, first draft to shooting was about 6 weeks. So the casting was a very quick process, which sometimes helps you. I mean, obviously we weren't offering the largest, acting fees. And so, when you're last minute, they know that they're not giving up, a Hollywood film to come be in our film. But Siobhan was amazing. She does such a phenomenal job. Because the film is a lot about her, and the film really rests on her. So it was amazing that she came on board.
So yeah, from the first draft of the script to production was only 6 weeks.
Something like that. But let me stress, I'm aware of how rare that is. And never,
unless you're making, a Hallmark Christmas movie, yeah.
Yeah. So, for instance, the one we're prepping now, it's already gone beyond that in prep. And I just said to the team, what she did is an anomaly, and we can't expect that every time. But there was something nice, because in Canada, I've gotten funding through Telefilm, which is a government agency in the past, and there's so many notes like my film prior to this, Chokeslam, which was a wrestling comedy, it took 11 years. So contrast that with Bright Hill Road of 3 months total. And it's nice to just fly by the seat of your pants and jump in there, as opposed to attrition setting in and just very, very slowly taking away what you love about the project because you're sick of it. Because it's been in development for so long.
And when you have something like Chokeslam that takes 11 years to get off the ground, and then this one only takes 6 weeks, is it a bit refreshing in that regard, or is it to the point of being extremely frightened and like, how are we able to pull this off so quickly? You know, I'm scared to see what the final result's going to be.
Yeah, a bit of both, but scared like a good scared. Scared like excitement and goosebumps scared, like how are we going to do this? But knowing that with Colin, me, and the DP we used, Robert Riendo, and the cast, like it'd be pretty hard to screw it up. But if it does screw up, it's on me, of course. But I'm really super happy with how it turned out.
All right, gentlemen, you guys are making a horror movie here. Well, made a horror movie here. It's coming out on January 12th. I would be remiss not to ask, what scares you?
For me, the supernatural scares me more than anything, and home invasion.
Supernatural in the sense like Exorcist, like demonic possession and ghosts?
Yeah.
Or
yeah, phantasms, poltergeists. That's what scares me the most, because I don't want to say I'm a believer, but I'm not a disbeliever. And home invasion is scary as crap. We should combine the two. Demons doing a home invasion, then we'd be onto something.
As a horror comedy.
Yeah, I guess so.
What about you, Colin? What scares you?
I think one of the kind of more recent things that have been investigated in horror is AI, and I think there is a lot of potential for the human free will to be bended by the artificial intelligence. And I think for me, that's looking forward, I think that is a real fear that we as a society have to address at some point, as things become more and more technology based.
Well, the scariest movie I've ever seen is Grease, because movie musicals terrify me.
Even that one, though? That's a good one.
Oh, yeah. No. I'm sorry, I have to disagree with you on that one, Robert. When someone just breaks out into song at random in a realistic setting, it terrifies me. Like I've been in situations like that with theater kids.
Oh, I agree there.
Yeah. I'll give an example. I was on a cruise with several voice actors, and I didn't realize that I was sitting at the theater kid table. And someone said a line from a musical that I've never heard, and all 7 of them broke out into song. And it was the scariest thing I had seen since the original Wicker Man, where all the kids are singing that terrifying hymnal as they're dancing around Gregory Peck's burning carcass. Yeah, no, that was scarier.
Did you call security? I would have.
Well, I was part of the group because it was this big group thing, and then just like, yeah, not my world, man.
Check please.
Yeah. With everything that's going on and the world's falling apart, we do need entertainment, and I'm glad that Bright Hill Road has been entertaining. Even its dark twists and turns, and just make us jump out of our seats at times. But it does come out on demand and on DVD January 12th, 2021. It's going to take a while to get used to 2021. It's Friday night. Obviously, we got no place to go here in California, and I think parts of Canada is still on lockdown. Why do we need to sit down and watch Bright Hill Road?
For the very reason that it's not a big film, and it's indie actors at top of their game, and it's a crafty film made by people that love horror. I can't tell you how many people in film I meet that don't actually see movies, and it's shocking. And I also think you can tell a horror movie is made by someone that ingests and sleeps and eats horror all day, like I do, you can tell that it's made from that place with respect for the viewers and with nods and winks to other films, and that would be my answer.
Colin, what about you, man? You're the money man behind this. You got to sell the picture too. You got to make your money back.
I think Robert's right that, you know, indie film is important, and the way that indie film survives is by, you know, people watching it. And, you know, there's a lot of heart, soul that are in this film that I think really make it a interesting story that people can enjoy, and at the same time make you think a little bit about the world that we're in and who we are.
Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure. Where can we find you on social media if we want to connect with you and the film?
I'm just Robert_Cuffley, I think. Instagram and Twitter. I'm on Twitter. Facebook gives me anxiety.
I'm surprised Twitter doesn't give you anxiety.
Yes.
And Colin, what about you?
Just Colin Sheldon. I'm on Twitter as well.
Perfect. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. I greatly appreciate it. Bright Hill Road, again, is on demand in DVD January 12th, 2021. Congratulations on the film. Thank you for scaring the hell out of me. And hopefully you'll scare the hell out of all audiences.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.